Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me, and I've received a lot of questions asking, what do I look for on BallParkPal when I am making selections for my home run hitters each day? So I want to make a few important announcements or qualifications before we actually look at my daily process. So that way I'm covering all my bases, no pun intended. The first thing is that this is not the optimized way of doing things. I just want to make that very clear. There are people out there who take some of the information that I'm about to show you, they put it into model, they fair price it, and then they bet according to all of those metrics. I do not do that. I respect people who can and who do that, but that is not my style. I like to look through and have more of an organic and human approach when I do this. And I also think the way that I do it is most reasonable for most people. A lot of you watching this are never going to build a model and one that actually beats the markets, right? So if I can at least give you guys some breadcrumbs, some cookies, dangle some carrots in front of your face, then I think we can all be a little bit better. And sometimes I think the sharp minds on YouTube and Twitter and just the sharp minds in general often look down on anybody not doing it their way. And I think more times than not, they're valid for doing that because more times than not, they are right. But I do think there's this middle ground of degenerates who want to get better. And so that is the purpose of this video. It's to help degenerates who want to get better. So the first thing I'll say is if you are interested in BallParkPal after what I show you today, you can save $10 off of your yearly subscription using code GMG50. It is normally $60 a month. You can get it for $50. Sorry. Whoa, hold up. It's normally $60 a year. You can get it for $50 a year, which comes out to about 26 cents a day. You get all the information on this website. We're going to look at some of it today. So if you are interested, I only have a certain amount of codes left. I want to say there's less than 30 left. So I don't want to create this sense of false scarcity. I think I can get another code if I ask him for it. But right now I know that this code is limited. So if you are interested, make sure you use it. And if you try to use it and it doesn't work, please leave me a comment and we'll look at it. But before we talk about BallParkPal, I need to say this. I also use this website, RotoWire, for daily lineups, and sometimes I'll click through here and look at players and matchups. So this is a free site. So part of my sauce is on other sites. It's not strictly BallParkPal. So I use RotoWire for lineups. I'll click through guys. I'll look at pitchers. I'll look at batters there. And then Baseball Savant is another website that I use. This is completely free, and this is a tremendous site if you can figure out all the ins and the outs. So for example, just to show you some of the capabilities of this site, let's say I'm interested in looking at home runs today at the new Oakland Sutter Health Park where the A's are playing this year. So I'll go up here and I'll change the venue to this. I'll go and I'll change to this season because it's the only season they've played there. I'll change this to batter and I'll change this to plate attempt result home run. I want to see how many home runs have been hit at this park and where they are going. So if you hit search, and this website has so much information, it takes a little bit. So in what, 4 games, 1 or 2 series, these are the home runs that were hit. I'm not going to move my head here, but there's a button that says graphs behind my head. If you click on that, it's not responsive. Yeah, sometimes, this site is pretty intense, so it sometimes moves a little slow. But the point is, if you click this graphs chart behind my head, it will bring up the spray chart, and you can see where the home runs go. You can see what kind of pitch it was homered on. You can see all kinds of information. So we're not going to do that. Get out of here, Baseball Savant. You've embarrassed me. We're just going to look at BallParkPal today, but I want you to know that as far as the way that I build home run slips and pick guys, I use a multitude of sites. This is the only site that is paid, so I want to walk you through my daily process. So here it is. First thing I'll do is I'll go to Park Factors, and we'll start at this first game. So I'll look at Chase Field, and sometimes I pay attention to this, minus 21%, based on the average given the conditions. I'll go up here to wind, and I'll see that Chase Field has medium receptivity to wind. In other words, it's kind of in the middle of parks in terms of how much wind actually matters. When you look down here at Wrigley Field in Chicago, this says extreme, which means that this 12-mile-an-hour wind, it matters. Like that wind, the batters are going to feel all of that 12 miles an hour. Whereas, some of these other ones that are lower, they may not feel it. Now, you also see that the wind is negligible. It's basically not blowing. So wind in this instance is not necessarily something that I care about. When I look at the air, okay, I see that it's warm. Warmer is better for home runs. That's good. Low humidity. Usually humidity helps with home runs, and average pressure. So far, so good on weather tonight. Obviously, if the wind was blowing out, that would help, but it's low wind anyway. Traits has a large outfield, higher altitude, which helps balls fly, great contact rate, great contact quality. So you can also click here and see a summary. So what I may also do is I may also click on this. If you click on Chase Field, it will show you a diagram of the field. Right? Center field home runs are hard to hit at Chase Field because the wall is not only deep at above 400 feet into the outfield, but the wall is 25 feet high. That is incredibly difficult to hit a ball that far, that high. So if home runs are going to be hit at Chase Fields, they're going to go in right field or left field, where the wall height is moderate at 8 feet and the park is fairly standard in size. So I would look through that, and I would kind of, each park is different, right? Like if there are guys who tend to hit a lot of center field home runs, I'm probably going to avoid them here unless I really love the matchup, because center field is not conducive to home runs. Yes, Aaron Judge could clear this wall, but other guys in the league are not going to be able to clear this 25-foot wall. So I'm really looking at guys who are going to pull a majority of their balls to the corners. So that is kind of how I would target it based on the stadium. So that's kind of the overview of stadium and weather. That's how you can get into, and we'll look at another one just because I love you guys and want to help you. Detroit today has high winds, high receptivity, and they are blowing out to right field. So when I look at this, when I click on this, I know that most home runs hit today are going to go over here. Over here is where the wind is blowing at a high mile an hour with high receptivity. So when I look at this, right, if we think about a left-handed batter, most left-handed batters, at least the moderate ones, some of the big power guys can hit it anywhere, right? Like Devers can pull one, push one across the field from where he's batting. But most guys who are left-handed are going to hit their home runs over here. So when I think about this win today, and this is not foolproof, guys, but these are the thought processes that I have. A left-handed batter is going to pull the ball this way, and the wind is going to push it more towards center field or towards this 15-foot wall, right? So there are conditions, and the other day, Kerry Carpenter, a left-handed batter, at this field, the wind was blowing this hard, but it was blowing the correct way. I guess I got to point, it's inverse. It was blowing this way. So Kerry Carpenter's wind was helping the ball get to this 9-foot wall in shallow right field. That is not the case today. A lot of the left-handers' balls are going to end up in this area, which is the hardest part to hit home runs in at this park. Could they hit one? Absolutely. There are lefties who are probably going to hit one today. But for me, I think the advantage is to play right-handed batters who are going to pull the ball over to this shorter 7-foot wall in shallow right field with the wind helping, right? These are kind of all the things that I try to tie together. So it's not foolproof. I know I don't have a model for it. No, I don't have calculations on wind speed and wall height, and I don't have an algorithm that plugs it. I just feel it. And that's not a good way to bet. Like, I get that. That's not a good way to bet. But that is how I'm comfortable doing it, and that is how I do it. Okay, so that is how I use park factors to kind of look at everything. And once I have a good idea of sort of the demographics of guys I want to target, then I come in here to starting pitchers. And this is probably the coolest new feature of BallParkPal, and one that you cannot get anywhere else as easily consumed as anywhere else. If you scroll down here, it lists the pitchers for the day. So we were talking about the game in Arizona. So let's go down here and look at Zach Gallen. So if we look at Zach Gallen, these are the statistics or matchup grading as it relates to Zach Gallen. This score is from the perspective of Zach Gallen, not the batter. This is the matchup, and you can see up here. Among the opposing Orioles lineup, Adley Rutschman is rated the toughest matchup for Zach Gallen. That's why it's an F. So in Zach Gallen's mind, the worst matchup for Zach Gallen, remember, this is the pitching category. This can be confusing. A lot of people look at this and say, batter, Jordan Westburg, oh, he's going to suck against Gallen. He has a D-. No. This is the pitcher perspective. Jordan Westburg, Adley Rutschman, and Gunnar Henderson all set up well against Zach Gallen. Now, you see home run statistics here. The closer to one, the better. So you can see Westburg Westberg, according to BallParkPal, has the highest percentage increase or chance of going yard against Gallen. You can see guys who are really, 0.66 to get a hit, 0.69 to get a hit, all the way down here to Jackson Holliday, which is the worst bat to maybe target today. There's only 27 matchups that are better for Zach Gallen than Jackson Holliday. In other words, Jackson Holliday should struggle tonight against Zach Gallen. Okay, so that's how I kind of look through this. And you may be saying, oh, you look at just home runs and then you pick based on that. Not necessarily, because I do like Cedric Mullins tonight, and he's only 0.05, and he's got a B-. So let's click into one of these matchups and look at what it all entails. What are some other things I look at within? So let's look at Adley Rutschman because it is an F. If you click on the F, it will take you to a matchup page, and it will break it down. Adley matchup. Adley Rutschman has a strong advantage over Zach Gallen. This is an F matchup for Zach Gallen, one of the worst in the MLB for Zach Gallen. And as for on the other side of the ball, it's a C matchup for Adley Rutschman, worst 37%. So he could have a better pitcher, right? Like it's kind of the perspective of both. This is a bad matchup for Zach Gallen, and it's an okay matchup for Adley Rutschman, if that makes sense, right? If this was F and A, we are cooking. Adley Rutschman has a 37% chance of reaching base, yada, yada. Sometimes I glance here and I see a slight negative for home run given the matchup, slight negative for home run given the matchup. Again, it's not something that I put a lot of stock into here. What I really like is down here. So this shows the release point of Zach Gallen and the both horizontal and vertical, like where the pitcher throws the ball, where the pitcher's usual release is, and then how Adley Rutschman grades versus it. So Zach Gallen throws the ball, really far out to the third baseline, and it's kind of a medium release. It's not super high out to third base. It's not super low out to third base. Like who's that guy for the Phillies? Strom, maybe, with the long hair, who kind of whips a submarine pitch. It's kind of right here in the middle. And when we look at Adley Rutschman history versus extreme releases to third base and midpoint, it's a B- and a B. So he hits these pretty well, right? If it was a release point that's kind of high, right? That's Adley's worst hitting matchup. Then I scroll down here and I look at the pitch arsenal and how the batter hits against it. So 48% of Zach Gallen's throws are a four-seam fastball, what Adley Rutschman hits to an okay degree. And then you can see his knuckle curve is rated pretty good. It's an A pitch. There's not enough data on Adley Rutschman versus the knuckle curve. Changeup, he throws 14% of the time. Adley Rutschman hits that pretty well. So you can click through here. Here's some more details about how Zach Gallen typically throws the ball and how Adley Rutschman hits these balls, right? If you look at the meatball, these are balls that are non-competitive, and you can click in here and see non-competitive. The worst type of pitch has a high percent chance of home run. If you look at that, Adley Rutschman hits the meatballs really well. He's a good guy to capitalize on bad throws, but Zach Gallen versus the MLB throws a meatball 2% less. So that's something to look at. A likely ball, you can look through here and you can kind of see the types of pitches using this pitch label, and you can get a better idea of what you're going to see tonight in terms of arsenal and in terms of how the batter approaches that. But when I come down here, this is where I really spend a lot of time. This is the bread and butter of the adventure. He does have a home run in history against Zach Gallen. 5 at-bats, 1 hit, 1 home run. So that's great. I would love it if he did it tonight because he's one of my favorite plays tonight. But if we come down here to contact and outcomes, what I look at is, of course, I look at home runs. So when it comes to the MLB average, Adley Rutschman hits home runs at a slightly higher degree, barely. It's negligible. It's neutral. I would look at this and say neutral. So in terms of this category, I'm not moved. Okay, we go to contact label, and the things I'm looking at in contact label are the maybe homer, the likely homer, the no doubter, and potentially the flyout. Now we don't want flyouts, but flyouts sometimes show promise in terms of home runs. So Adley Rutschman, when the ball is graded as a maybe homer, he's slightly above average, likely homer, not quite. Balls don't quite travel as far for Adley Rutschman. No doubter, not quite routine flyout. He's high end. When we look at Zach Gallen, he's pretty neutral to the MLB, but his maybe homer is slightly higher. So when there's kind of a ball that leaves the bat, and it could be, it could not be, based on barrel percentage and launch angle, swing speed, he has given up slightly more to the MLB average in those circumstances. So I look at that. I go to exit velocity, and I see that Adley Rutschman does not swing a ton over the 100 miles an hour. Now, I would like those to be higher. Like, this would maybe scare me a little bit, but the fact that Zach Gallen gives up a lot of hard hit balls or high exit velocity balls that leave the bat at over 100 miles an hour, that is good. So I kind of look at this as it cancels out, and he's still swinging the ball hard. Like he has a 2% increase to the MLB average in this range, and home runs can still happen in this range. Like, it doesn't have to be just above 100 miles an hour in terms of contact. So this is fine. But again, I'm looking at, like, there are some guys, there are some batters who are blue. Like, they don't swing the ball hard or bat hard, and the pitchers is blue. Like, they don't give up a lot of exit velocity. The balls don't fly hard off the bat or fast off the bat when they're pitching. So, like, that is not something that I look at. When I look at this, I'm okay with this because the pitcher is susceptible. And while Adley Rutschman doesn't swing normally as hard, he still has some potential in how hard he does swing. And then finally, launch angle. What I will tell you is you want to look in these three categories. 19 to 50 is the optimized part of the bat in launch angle that generates the most home runs. So if we look at this, Adley Rutschman is plus in all of these categories. Adley Rutschman rarely hits ground balls. If we look at this, -2. The MLB typical percentage of balls that are what we would deem ground balls would be 29%. He's hitting them at about 25%. So that's better. He is a above average hitter in terms of where he puts the ball in position to home run. So that's the last thing I look at in terms of this. Now, that is how I use BallParkPal. What you have to understand, though, is BallParkPal is incredibly detailed. Like, I just showed you two things. I'm just showing you based on home runs. If you buy BallParkPal, and I'm telling you to buy BallParkPal, you spend the money however you want. But if you are interested in getting into MLB data, there is so much more you can do. They have game sims, which show you his predictions across all kinds of markets and what fair odds would be based on his models. You got batter versus pitcher matchups, which I kind of gave you a look at, but this is kind of an aggregated list on the day to maybe point out some good spots, higher probability spots than otherwise. So if you liked what I showed you there and you said, well, I want to kind of aggregate it, I want to comb through every game, you've got that there. He's got a most likely page. I don't look at this. Again, I want to do my own research and come to my own conclusions, but obviously he has the batters who are most likely to hit a home run today. Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso, Shohei Ohtani, Brent Rooker, Cal Raleigh. Guys you would probably expect to see are on this list. I don't use this. You can use this if you want. I prefer to do my own research and comb through my own things, et cetera, but you can do pitchers to allow 2 home runs. Maybe you want to look there and say, okay, so Miami's pitcher is set up to allow the most home runs. Maybe there's some New York Mets I can target. So if we go over here, we look at the weather, winds blowing in, it's kind of chilly. Maybe home runs are probably down all across the average because of the weather, but he still has this guy giving up, 25% chance to give up 2. You kind of have to feel it out and see if it's worth it for you. You got teams to win the game to get 3 home runs, right? The Mets, obviously you would expect them if they're going up against the worst pitcher. He gives it a 17% chance of the Mets hitting 3 home runs. You can look through here and get a feel about that. Runs in the first inning for games, that's not showing up right now. But yeah, this site is so full of data and information and helpful tools. If you go to the home run zone, sometimes I check this out. It shows you the projected home runs across the slate today. Houston and Seattle should be the most homered in park, followed by New York and Detroit. We talked about that wind. Maybe there's some right-handers that you can pick for Detroit that could do pretty well. Then it comes down here, breaks down again, batters, odds, how they've hit on the season. They've hit 6 on the season. How many of them were meatballs? Just so much information on this website. that is useful and definitely worth that money. Again, not trying to sell you on anything, but trying to give you an idea of what BallParkPal has. And again, it is behind a paywall, so you do have to pay for this stuff. So if you want to check it out, again, my code will save you an extra $10, and you can use that. But I did want to give you guys a look at how I approach home runs. Again, there's some other things I do with pricing and figuring out what I think is fair value and things of that nature that are not related to BallParkPal in any way. But that's maybe we'll call that the extra secret sauce that I'll keep to myself. But it's really not that big of a deal. Point is, check out BallParkPal if you want to elevate your MLB data game, or if it's just something that is interesting to you. And golly, let's hope we get some home runs today. We'll see you tomorrow.